for all of us. Every voice must be heard and every vote must be counted. Despite sometimes extreme adversity, people across the country turned out in record numbers yesterday to make their voices heard and to honor our democratic tradition. I'm grateful to every Portlander who turned in a ballot. Thank you for helping to make critical decisions about our shared future. And thank you for the opportunity to continue serving as your mayor. This election added to the uncertainty, anxiety, and fear that many of us are feeling in the face of a pandemic, the resulting recession, hard and necessary conversations about racial justice and police reform, and even ideologically driven opportunists attempting to spread violence on our streets. The future is unknown, but the past provides confidence in our Constitution and in our electoral process. The United States has held elections and peaceful transitions of power for centuries, even during times of crisis, the Civil War, the Great Depression, and 2 world wars. Election officials carefully prepare for election days over the course of 4 years. They will ensure that every vote is counted and that we honor the voters' will. As final votes in the presidential race are counted, I'm increasingly hopeful that our federal delegation's next job will be to ensure a peaceful transition of power in the White House. And in January and beyond, that they will work collaboratively to undo the harm of these last 4 years and to restore federal leadership on housing, climate, the public health, and other areas. And we have a lot of work to do here locally. I am committed to supporting smooth transitions so that our new city council is ready to hit the ground running in January. And I know that Commissioners Ryan, Rubio, Hardesty, and Maps will help make sure that our good work continues. The people of Portland are powerful. We are united by a deep conviction in our shared values. Black Lives Matter, the urgent need to restore a safe climate, safe and affordable housing as a right, economic opportunity for all, and preschool and a great education for every child in our community. The fact that these values require more work is a demonstration of the fact that our social safety net is frayed, but it can be mended, and we are all part of the solution. We can refocus our police and transform our public safety system with community input to address the root causes of crime with prevention, education, and support services. And we will implement the will of voters by creating a new, more powerful, more independent, and better resourced police accountability system to ensure that everyone in Portland feels safer than they do today. And we will reckon with the tough questions. If our values are what our lawn signs say, then why are our central city neighborhoods still so predominantly white? Why are BIPOC Portlanders not thriving? Why aren't our social networks more diverse? Why does race continue to be an accurate predictor of healthcare, wealth, and educational outcomes here in progressive Portland? Why are we so resistant to basic zoning changes that open our neighborhoods to Portland's growing population of people of color? The last 4 years have shown what we can achieve together. I'm proud of our response to the global pandemic, and I'm proud of the progress we've made on housing, on homelessness, economic opportunity, and on climate change, amongst other areas. But clearly, there's still a lot more to do. As I look to 2021, I'm filled with gratitude and hope. This is not a perfect place, and we have many historical inequities to repair, but Portland is still a very special place. I know we will continue to rise to the challenge of the pandemic, doing what's necessary to keep ourselves and each other safe. And we will be intentional with this opportunity to build back better and to do right by future generations of Portlanders. Here are the core priorities your council adopted earlier this year and that will guide us through the changes ahead. equity, climate justice, anti-racism, collaboration, communication, transparency, and fiscal responsibility. Portlanders turned out in record numbers to uphold the power of our democracy. The Portland I love and the Portland I believe in is full of people who care for each other, care for the planet, and are excited and ready to do their part so that everyone is safe, everyone has access to opportunity, and everyone can thrive. It's been a privilege to serve as your mayor. To those who voted for me, thank you. To those who didn't, I respect your choice, and I commit to doing my best to serve all of Portland and to listen to you and to helping us come together to create a better future for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. We'll now take questions from reporters. Again, reminder, put your hands up and I will call on you as I see in the lineup here. Everton Bailey with the Oregonian. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you for the time. You alluded to this a little earlier, and also you mentioned last night that you understood that there was a lot of people who were frustrated with the direction of the city, and obviously those frustrations and questions about your leadership from the public aren't going to go away. So my question is, do you have any specific plans to share on how you will go about rebuilding trust among residents whose support you've lost?
I believe one of the key areas that needs to improve with my second term over the first term is the dialogue that we have with the public, the understandings that we're trying to reach. It feels to me that there's often a gap in the dialogue between the work that my administration is doing, what we're doing, why we're doing it, who we're working with, how we're engaging the community, and what the public's expectations are in terms of this administration. And so we're rethinking everything in terms of the coalitions we build, how we build those coalitions, how we extend the inclusivity of those coalitions. We want to be a very approachable and inclusive administration, and we want to build on the good work that we've done. But that to me is really going to be the core. It's building those opportunities for mutual trust, building, sharing, collaborating with the community, and being completely transparent in terms of feedback. What's working, what isn't working, and where are we headed?
Specifically, what does that look like? Is that more community forums? Is that more press releases? Is that more, I mean, what exactly does that look like?
Yeah, Everton, if I had to sum it up in one sentence, I'd say this. My work is not here at City Hall. That's obviously part of the job. My work is in the community. And what's really energized me over the last couple of months during this campaign is that I haven't been at City Hall. I have been in the community, and I've been sharing ideas. I've been collaborating. I've been listening to the public. Ultimately, I trust the people of this community. And as I've said on many occasions, the best ideas that we have from City Hall didn't come from City Hall. They came from the community. And I have seen the public respond very positively to the way that I've been engaged in the community and the way that I've communicated directly with the public. That includes more frequent press engagements like this. It also includes more opportunities for me to be out in the community, building coalitions myself with my team and my colleagues on the city council, or alternatively engaging with and interacting with coalitions that already exist in the community. And it's about being better about providing data and feedback to the community on what's working, what isn't working, what are our goals, how are we doing with respect to our goals and our efforts, and being fundamentally honest with the public about what's working and what isn't working, and at every step calling to action the community to work with us, whether it's on housing support, whether it's on some of the coalitions we've been building around protecting those and ensuring safe options for those who are living on our streets, whether it's working with people in the environmental space to extend our climate action opportunities as we've been doing over the last several years. I just think there's so many more opportunities for us to engage the public in ways that, frankly, I'm really excited about for term 2.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Everton. Let's go next with Sarah Hurwitz from KPTV. Sarah, you have a question?
Sarah.
Hello, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. My questions revolve around the passage of Measure 26217. I know that you have supported this measure, but you have also said that there would need to be some kind of bargaining with the police union. I'm curious what your plans are moving forward, what that looks like. The police union has been very outspoken, saying that this violates the law. So, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, when we went about the effort of strengthening the accountability and oversight mechanism, when my council colleagues and I chose to refer this to the ballot, we understood at the outset that we're talking about an 18th to 24-month program. It will undoubtedly require some collective bargaining with the unions. We will enter into those negotiations in good faith. We're already slated, starting in January, to restart our negotiations around the next contract with the Portland Police Association. And beyond negotiating with our labor unions, it's also my expectation that there will be state statute that needs to change as well. So we'll be working in collaboration with our colleagues in the Oregon legislature. None of this will be easy. All of this is critically important. The public has said loudly and clearly, and I think we're all in agreement that we need to improve the oversight and accountability mechanisms of policing in this community. And to do it, if that means we have to go to the bargaining table and bargain in good faith with the union that represents the men and women of the Portland Police Bureau, so be it. We're not daunted by that.
I also talked with Ross Caldwell over at IPR, and he said, obviously, there's a lot of unknowns right now, but he did say that he's concerned that people might leave IPR and look for other opportunities because of the uncertainty, the possibility that IPR could not exist here. So, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Russ and I want to thank his colleagues. They are supremely qualified individuals. I appreciate their service to the community, but I'm sure they would also acknowledge that the oversight and accountability mechanism that's in place now, the status quo, isn't really serving anybody's interests particularly well. And most importantly, what I've heard from the public, whose police bureau this is that they expect more. They expect more detailed oversight and accountability opportunities. They expect more public engagement, and they expect the process to work fairly and more quickly than it currently works. So I agree that this could potentially create some disruption within the existing status quo oversight and accountability system. But I would also tell people, look, we need to evolve. We need to respond to what our public is overwhelmingly telling us. And now they have reconfirmed at the polls that they expect us to do things differently around oversight and accountability. On the positive side, for the folks at IPR, I would again stress that this is not an immediate change. This is something that will happen over the course of the better part of 2 years. So there's nothing that will require an urgent shift.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's move on to Zane Sparling with the Portland.
And Sarah, if I could just put one addendum on that. The folks working at IPR have a critically important perspective. And I hope that they see this as a call to action to join us and work with us and provide much needed input and perspective that only they can offer.
All right, thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Zane, it looks like you're ready. You have a question for the mayor?
Hi, yes. Mr. Mayor, given that you won this election with less than 50% of the vote, what do you think your mandate is? Do you need to adopt some of the policies of your challengers, given that you probably wouldn't have won if not for the number of write-in votes?
Well, the way an election still works in America, as of this morning, is that whoever gets the most votes wins. And so I am proud that my campaign was able to secure the most votes. That tells me that the public supports me. They support this administration. They support the vision of this administration. But we would be foolish if we claimed that we had some monopoly on the truth. I think the public is with me writ large when it comes to getting us through the pandemic, making sure that we continue to support households and small businesses to help them get through the economic recession that we're currently in overwhelming numbers. I know that the public supports my call to, as quickly and humanely as possible, get as many people off the streets as possible and connect them with whatever care they need to help them stay off the streets. I know the public overwhelmingly supports the Black Lives Matter movement that calls for racial justice and equity. And we may have some disagreements around the edges about what specific police reforms should be adopted or not adopted, but I think all of us agree that public safety in this community needs to evolve. And there is broad agreement in the city of Portland that we need to continue to lead around protecting our environment and being aggressive in meeting our climate action goals. And so I don't think there's going to be too much disagreement on those broad values that drive this administration. When it comes to new ideas, new concepts, innovations, I will work with anyone, and I will listen to anyone who wants to work with us to move this community forward for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zane. All right, Pat Duras, KGW, you have a question for the mayor?
Yes,
Hi,
Mr.
Pat.
Mayor, Joanne Hardesty several times has insisted that you turn over control of the police bureau to her. I'm wondering what, if anything, changes after the election now, and where are we with police reform?
The decision about which bureaus are assigned to which commissioners rests solely with the mayor. And now that I know who is on the Portland City Council, and I'm very excited about the strength of the incoming City Council in January, I'm going to have the opportunity to meet with incoming Commissioner Mapps and incoming Commissioner Rubio and my relatively new Commissioner Dan Ryan, as well as Commissioner Hardesty, to talk about how those bureaus should be assigned come January. And so I have not made any predeterminations about which bureaus get assigned to whom, but it would be premature for any commissioner to presume that they would be the commissioner in charge of any particular bureau. I have not yet made those decisions. And once I have made those decisions, I will let my colleagues know in due time.
And will you keep control of the police bureau yourself?
I have said on many occasions that all of the bureaus are up for reconsideration. Now that I know who is going to be on the city council, that will help me in my determination of how the bureaus get reassigned in January. All the bureaus are under consideration.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Let's see, Alex Zielinski.
Hey, Alex.
Go ahead, Alex, you have a question? We're not hearing you, Alex. Try one more time, and if not, maybe you put something in the chat box and we'll move on to another reporter. Lisa Balick, Coin TV.
Hi, Lisa.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Question for you is, based on the thousands of voters who voted for your opponent, who voted for a third party candidate, there's clearly a lot of people who don't like how you're handling some of the key issues like homelessness or not handling it, and the violent protest actions. Will you change your response in these two areas moving forward?
With regard to homelessness, the answer is unquestionably yes. And people have already seen the change in response. I think we, working with our partners in collaboration, we have many partners, Multnomah County government, our service providers, our state partners. There is no question in my mind that since the beginning of the COVID crisis, and even prior to that, more and more people were ending up on our streets. We need to redouble our efforts to find ways to get as many people as possible, as humanely as possible, off of our sidewalks and into alternatives. And just over the course of the last several weeks, I have called for up to 300 new shelter beds. We've secured 275 of those 300 new shelter beds. That allows us to start moving people off the sidewalks. I'm working with my colleagues at Multnomah County and some of our service providers and Mark Jolin at the Joint Office to talk about alternatives to people camping on the streets. I'm going to be very aggressive about that going forward. That's one area that you're going to see substantive change. And then with regard to ending the nightly violence, I don't know anyone in this community who supports violence. I think everybody here agrees we support nonviolent, peaceful demonstration. I don't know too many people who support violent demonstration or criminal destruction. I have been unequivocally clear, I do not. And what we have done more recently is, number one, we've strengthened our mutual aid agreements. We're working very closely now in collaboration with the state police, our county law enforcement officials, local law enforcement, and other governmental leaders to create a strong, unified response to violence and criminal destruction. And the second thing we're already improving is making sure that for those who are engaged in acts of violence or criminal destruction, we're making arrests. We're following up with solid investigative capacity to make sure we hand the district attorney a solid case. And then we're holding those individuals accountable. And I'm sure everybody's seen in recent weeks, we've made some very high profile and relatively speedy arrests. We've turned over good evidence to the district attorney so that he's able to make a strong case in court to hold people accountable. That's the formula.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Rebecca Ellis, OPB, and then I will read Alex's question that's in the chat box now. But Rebecca, go ahead.
Thanks, Sam.
Hey, Rebecca here with OPB. I was wondering, now that we fully know who's going to be on the council come January, I was wondering if you could reflect a little bit on how you expect this upcoming council maybe different to work with than the group you've been working alongside for the last few years.
It's too soon to tell. I know Mingus Maps a little bit. We've certainly had interactions. We've had conversations from time to time. And I know Carmen Rubio very well, and I know that she and I will work together extremely well. Commissioner Ryan and I have worked together in other capacities around education and youth support for years prior to him joining the Portland City Council. So I have a good, solid working relationship with him. So for most of the new members of the council, we already work well together. We've demonstrated we can work well together. We know how each of us work and how we collaborate. We trust each other. And just based on what I know about Commissioner Maps, he's obviously a quick study, and he was overwhelmingly elected by the public. I really look forward to him joining this team, and I think it's going to be great. I think this is starting in January, it's going to be one of the strongest city councils, I believe, that has ever been impaneled in the city of Portland.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Now the question from Alex Zielinski with the Mercury. What do the city's election results, including your re-election, the election of Mingus Maps, and the passage of certain measures, tell you about Portland at this moment? And as an elected official, what does this tell you about the city's desires going forward?
I think the public is saying a couple of things writ large. Number one, they support community institutions. They support the libraries. They support our world-class park systems. It says that they care about each other. People are willing to pony up and support preschool for all, which is really important in this community. And I'm really happy that that passed. And then with regard to individuals that were holding office, there was a strong desire for change. And that was reflected in the city council races as well as some other races. But on the whole, what it told me is Portlanders support their institutions and they support each other. And that should come as a surprise to nobody. Certainly not to me.
All right, thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Next up, Gillian Flax with the Associated Press. Gillian, you have a question for the mayor?
Yes, hi, Mayor Wheeler. This is Gillian with AP. Somebody already asked a little bit about the protests, but you know, with Trump contesting the vote count in the battleground states, I'm sure that there are going to be more protests. Now that you have been elected to a second term, how will that impact how you handle protests going forward? Do you feel that with a second term, not worrying about re-election, you might be a little bit harder on protesters or less so? I mean, can you just talk about that a little bit and what your strategy is going forward?
Yeah, well, and the strategy, of course, will depend on what we're seeing on the streets. We had 5 individuals come to City Council this morning to participate in communications. They represent people who've been out on the street on a nightly basis. We had good feedback from them this morning, and I believe where we go from here, and I'm assuming that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are elected. That seems to be the way that the numbers are rolling right now. I think that will create a different environment nationally, and I hope a return to civility and inclusivity. And that will definitely, I think, take some of the heat off of what we've seen around the types of activities that cause people to go to the streets in the first place. And I hope that now that we're at the part of our police reform efforts that include the community, that are in community engagement processes, while we may not all agree on the letter and word of what specific police reforms should be adopted, I believe we're now having a really robust and inclusive citywide discussion about how policing can evolve and how policing can improve. And I think a lot of the energy that we're seeing on the streets is slowly moving into those discussions about what actual evolution of policing looks like. And that's the part of this process that I'm the most excited about.
Okay, thank you for your question, Gillian. Maxine Bernstein with the Oregonian. Max, got a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What do you see the path forward for police reform in your mind? What would you like to see given the new makeup of the City Council in January?
Yeah, that's a great question, Max. First of all, the new accountability mechanism that was just voted on by the voters, I was proud to be part of the City Council that unanimously sent that measure to the voters. I strongly support it. I'm glad that it overwhelmingly passed. That's obviously an opportunity for the community to engage directly around oversight and accountability. That's going to be a big thrust of our council's work going forward. Obviously, with the contract negotiations for the first time, at least in recent city history, I have chosen not to negotiate that contract behind closed doors alone as the police commissioner. I've chosen to engage all of my colleagues on the Portland City Council. Those conversations start in earnest in January with the full council participating. Obviously, non-police responses to public safety interventions is going to continue to be of interest to all of us on the council. We've all supported the Portland Street Response program. That program needs to get legs under it more quickly than is currently happening. But that is a program that all of us on the council can get behind. We, of course, have the charter review process coming up. That's another significant community engagement possibility, particularly around public safety. And then last but not least, when it comes to the calls for reducing the size and the scope of policing, that's going to happen anyway by virtue of the fact that we have guaranteed budget cuts coming for next year. And as the largest general fund bureau in the city, the police bureau will not escape those reductions. So I want my colleagues on the city council to engage in meaningful dialogue with the community over the course of the next 6 or 8 months about what those reductions should look like and what would have the minimal impact on public safety. Or alternatively, what kind of investments could we make throughout the city that would improve public safety that don't necessarily involve more police?
Max, thank you. We have time for one more question. We're past the bottom of the hour. So Kelly Azar from K2, last question of the day.
Hi, Kelly.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it. You are, Mr. Mayor, now the first two-term mayor since Vera Katz left office in 2004. What makes you different? Why have you gone for this second term? And how are you feeling going into it? And if you will allow me, after you answer that, I have one other quick question for you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm energized. I have really enjoyed the last couple of months in particular. I've enjoyed getting out into the community as much as I could do so safely, given the COVID restrictions. I've had the opportunity to meet with a lot of people that I might not ordinarily be able to meet with outside of the opportunity just to spend all of my time outside of City Hall. And from my perspective, that is going to be key going forward. So I'm really looking forward to that opportunity to be energized, to be engaged with the community, to continue to build new coalitions along the lines of the ones we created to create the Broadway corridor and the Healthy Community Coalition, or the work we've done around our climate emergency declaration with lots of organizations, some of which were emerging, or the work we've done around houselessness, the work we did to extend the Portland housing bond into communities that weren't historically represented at the table in those discussions previously. Those are some of the great opportunities going forward. And I think there was part of your question that I forgot. So if you could restate that.
No, I think you hit it. We were just talking, you're really the first second term mayor now that we have, and that we've had since in over 10 years now, since 2004.
Well, the why of it's obvious. Portland has had many good mayors, but the community's interests have not been well served by rotating mayors every 4 years. When you do that, you not only lose the entire leadership team, it often leads to completely different dynamics on the city council. It causes you to reshuffle all of the coalitions that have been built in the community. And we've built many of them around economic prosperity, around housing, around homelessness, around the environment and climate action. If I were not returned for a second term, it's highly likely that all of those coalitions would be highly disrupted or significantly disrupted. And the number and the significance of the challenges we're facing require a steady hand at the keel. It doesn't mean we don't innovate, we don't evolve, we don't move, we don't continue to be progressive. But with all of the issues that we're currently facing, I think the public said they supported me. They had confidence in my leadership. They had confidence in my experience. And they want a mayor to stick around for a second term and see this hard work through.
And last quick question, obviously a shakeup in city council with Mingus Mapps taking the seat from Chloe Eudaly. Obviously, Eudaly was a big proponent for Hardesty's move on reform, especially when it comes to policing. What do you think this says with Mingus Mapps now taking that seat?
Well, I think it's a little premature for me to interpret what the voters' intentions were. I think I want to let it personally sink in a little bit. I want to be introspective about myself as well as my colleagues and what this means for us, and take that time to do it right. But with regard specifically to the fall bump and the proposals that Commissioner Hardesty and Commissioner Eudaly put on the table, I said last week that I wanted to take the time to go through the thorough analysis which was being conducted by the City Budget Office. Obviously, through yesterday, I was focused predominantly on the election, but I am spending today going through that analysis. I'll spend tomorrow morning going through that analysis. I'll have a lot more to say about it tomorrow and on Thursday when we have our second hearing